Today's episode of the Next Stop podcast is brought to you by Transit Gigs. Navigating the transit job market can be a bit of a head scratcher for those who aren't well versed in the industry. Between the vendor's website, the government agency's website, and the third-party application website, figuring out how to actually apply for the job has been anything but simple. Until now. Transit Gigs makes it super easy for aspiring candidates to discover, explore, and directly apply for opportunities near them. So say goodbye to robotic job offers and hello to real-life recruiters that provide real-life assistance. Experience a more human experience and drive your career forward at transitgigs.com. Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Patrick Burns, and I am the host of the Next Stop podcast. And I have one of my good friends, Christopher Jones, here with us today. He's decided to bless us with his presence. Easily, probably one of the smartest people I know. He's a lot smarter than I am, so I am definitely honored to have him be a part of the show today, man. And I met this brother via LinkedIn a couple of years ago. He kind of comes from transportation like I do, and man, this brother he's in law school, man. So it's really excited to have him on. And so before we really dive into the transportation stuff, I just kind of want to ask him some law questions. So believe it or not, man, true story. My first college major was actually criminal justice, and I realized it was really hard, and I wanted nothing to do with it. So what kind of led you to kind of get into that profession?
Yeah, man, great question. And, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to speak to your audience. And, thank you for all the compliments to start off. But, I finished my first year of law school. And what drew me to the legal profession was, of course, transportation. So I've held a variety of positions in transportation. I was what they call a starter, which was like a customer service rep. I used to hand out keys and the manifest to the bus operators and the current transit mode of transportation. And then I moved up into a dispatcher. And then I moved into a dispatch supervisor. I held a position as a call center manager, operations manager, schedules analyst. But between all of those positions, it was always within the unionized environment. So really just the exposure of having to go to arbitration, meet with the various union reps, collaborate over collective bargaining agreements. It sparked my curiosity into the legal space, and then also just wanting more out of my career. I think I fell into transportation at 18 years old. So I started off working for MTA. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, I'm sure you are, the MTA mobility contracts and the paratransit side of MTA. So I started off as, like I mentioned, a starter, just a very entry-level position, just as a means to an end, and really worked through the ranks. And by the time I made it to as an operations manager, again, exposed to the union side of things, and then also just wanting more of my career, I said, well, maybe, where can I transfer these skills? And we'll get into the skills that I've kind of acquired through working in transportation, but how could I apply what I already know to some of my newly found interests? And that's kind of how I just took that leap, man, to law school.
That sounds incredible, man. I didn't know you had that many job titles. I knew you had did a little bit of it, but man, you're like a Swiss Army knife. What
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So I know you did the MV part. Which location were you at? Were you over there on Sisson? I think it's Sisson Street, right?
Yeah, man, Sisson Street. Wow. So so that's where I started. Right on Sisson Street. It was for Veolia, but then they trained. Well, at first it was Yellow
Cab.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And then they actually held the contract, and then it went to Veolia, and then they had the name change now to Transdev. And then eventually I stayed with Transdev for almost 4 years, man.
Wow.
Yeah. Ooh, taking me back.
Yeah. So when I had met you, man, you were actually a West Coaster. You were out there getting some of the, the Tupac California love out there, man. So I don't know if you've ever caught a flight from Baltimore to California, but it's an extremely long flight, and people from Baltimore
Extremely.
don't end up in California by accident. So, brother, walk us through that process. Like, how do you get from Camden Yards to the Staples Center?
Such a great question because honestly, I mean, it kind of feels like it was on accident. It kind of just happened like a leap of faith, right? Just I wanted to expand my career. I actually wanted to be an actor. So like many other people moving to California, I had interest in being an actor. I did like some stage plays in Baltimore. My father and mom was heavily involved in the church, so I would often go and do like church plays and stuff like that. But
Nice.
what was this? In 2017, I decided to get my first job as an operations manager in Vallejo, California. So I started in the Bay Area outside of San Francisco. I worked there. And it's funny, once I got to California, I didn't do much acting, but it was a great position. And that specific location was it was really aggressive. They had two different unions. They had Teamsters and they also had ATU, Amalgamated Local Transit Union. And it taught me a lot. I just, it paid well as well. I wanted to, you know,
Yeah.
get
So,
some money and yeah.
did they have two unions in like the same agency?
Right. So just to break it down even further, so you had the big bus side, as you're familiar with, and then you also had the paratransit side, like the small
Yeah.
shuttle. So the contract had again the fixed route. It had the small paratransit side, and then we also had like non-union dispatchers and customer service reps. So there was a lot going on, as you can imagine, several different handbooks and collective bargaining agreements to consider. But I took the job really because I wanted to again just kind of like further my career, and I was young. I was like, let me go ahead and just take the risk. And so once I was in Vallejo, I stayed up there for about a couple of years, and then I moved down to Los Angeles again, still having those uh, acting aspirations, but.
Yeah.
Once I got to LA, I realized it was really just more of a hobby. But nevertheless, I took on a role even before, like I mentioned to you, I was a schedules analyst. So before I get to that role, I actually worked for Keolis as a project manager for like 6 months.
That's where I met you. You were the project manager.
Yeah,
That's when I
yeah.
met you. Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, it's funny. I've worked at a lot of companies. Like I've worked at the National Express, Keolis, Veolia, Transdev, same thing. Worked at First Transit. I actually was going to work at MV, but did. So I bounced around quite a bit. And then my last stint in transportation was for a public agency for the city of Gardena. So that's when I finally, I say finally because I didn't I didn't like bouncing around. I didn't like the private side of transportation, the contractor side of it. I really enjoyed working for the agency. Like you worked mostly for MTA, so like
Yeah.
you got to see the benefits and having the strong union and all that positive stuff that the private side necessarily doesn't get to capitalize on.
Yeah, I'm sure that is definitely probably a completely different animal. So, true story,
Yeah.
nobody actually, well, very few people know this. I did work private side for about
Ooh.
20 days. I was a bus driver in Arlington, Virginia for about a month, literally right out of the pandemic. So maybe May of 2020, we had like these
Ooh.
really like it was First Transit. We had these green uniforms and like black pants, man. And I would just see myself, I'm like, man, I look like Gumby in this uniform. Every time I would see like the good people though, man. Arlington is
Yeah.
definitely a beautiful place, man. But man, you've had such a good career. I see you can see it like bouncing around, but I'm just like, man, this guy's getting wisdom all
Yeah.
over the place, which I think is incredible. And
Yeah.
typically on this show, one thing I really I like about it is I like to show operators what is possible.
Yeah.
Transit personnel, what is possible. And brother, I think you're like the perfect beacon for that. Just the
Yeah.
amount of opportunities you've been able to kind of capitalize on to ultimately be in law. Like, man, that's incredible.
Thank you.
So in your current, kind of day to day and what you kind of do now, what are some of the skills you acquired within the transportation industry that you've been able to leverage in the law field?
Yeah, man, that's a great question because as you all know, like being a bus operator, I think a lot of people really don't realize how much value is in the transportation industry, right? Like so much exposure with customers, and you have exposure with just having to just working within the team. You're on a like a private island almost as like a bus operator, but you're still very much involved in a team. You have to communicate over open air radio. You have to communicate to your supervisors once you get back to the yard. Different customer service reps. It's a lot of communication. It's ever changing. It's high paced. It has its slow moments. It has its uncertainties, and whether you're a dispatcher, customer service rep, bus operator, it's just so much that you learn, and it's ever changing. Like I mentioned, like every day is unique. So I mean, and I really didn't. I do have my commercial license, but I got that when I was an operations manager. I never actually like drove, like, I ran a couple routes out, but that, like that. Now I don't have the experience. I never say I do. But nevertheless, I've, worked with bus operators hand in hand. I would, go out in the field, ride with an operator for the entire shift, the whole nine. And just like between getting that on the field exposure, having to work behind the scenes in the dispatch office, having to speak to customers, answering complaints, I think one of the best, there's a couple skills that I can say that I really took away from the transit industry. And I think the first would be just like communication, being able to be versatile in the way that you communicate. Like you, as a bus operator in transportation, you come across all different types of people. You have, of course, low income people. The majority of our customers are low income, but then also you have high income. If you have like a commuter route, or some type of some route that is very like popular, you get a wide variety of people and different ways that you have to kind of get the message across. And then also when I was really in the management dispatch side of things, I had to like strengthen my written communication skills, like writing memos, and then like explaining when I was a schedules analyst, explaining changes in a route, which it could be a hot topic for both the customers, the bus operators, management. Like as a schedules analyst, I've had to like bridge so many different departments to come to a common ground. And I think that's why I say communication is one of the best takeaways that you can ever get out of transportation, and that a lot of people do not have. Like I feel like my social skills are A1 because of transportation. Working from coast to coast, from Northern California, Southern California, to the Camden Yards in Baltimore, like you mentioned. So that's one piece, communication. And then also just like resilience, just stress tolerance. Like it is hard being a bus operator. It's hard working in transportation, especially, coming out of COVID, and just how much that goes into it. It's not the most lucrative career. We don't get the highest salaries, and but trust me, we get all the stress, and it's like I mentioned earlier, it changes on a day to day. So it's a lot to keep up with. And maybe if I had to put a third skill, what I say, communication, resilience, stress tolerance, and then maybe the third skill would be, I guess maybe just the tangible like skills that kind of come out of the career, like the industry in itself. Like being a bus operator is a skill. It's like I mentioned, I keep my commercial license. Yeah, I'm in law school, but I think it's so nice to have something to fall back on, and like you have an actual skill that no one can take from you. So like even being a manager comes with a certain set of skills that that's so transferable to the legal industry. So like being a lawyer, from what I learned thus far, I'm actually working at a law firm now in Houston, Texas. So I've had some exposure into working in the legal field, and it's a lot of communication. It's a lot of time management, like I mentioned, and it's a lot of just being able to like internalize information, as like take it as a sponge and learn from whatever's in front of you. And and get the skills out of it so that you can do the next task even better. So
That's dope stuff, man. It's funny you mentioned about how you had to kind of really step up like the writing game and the email game and things of that nature. So now, I kind of work in the technology space and do a little bit of consulting and things of that nature. But I came right to this side out of, like you said, operations. And one of the weirdest things for me, one of the, I would even say hardest transitions was to kind of like email culture. So the
yeah.
people I work with now, like they'll tell you, I remember my first time actually asking somebody like, hey, do you like me? So in like the email world, people are just like write your name and then a comma and then like whatever they have to say. And I'm just like, I remember
No,
texting
right.
my wife like, hey babe, why is everybody so
Are they
short with
mad?
me?
Yeah,
Like they
it's
don't
so
say
short.
hi.
Yeah.
They're just like, Patrick, you can find this file here.
Right.
Like that was
Like,
definitely one of the hardest parts. But again, you just kind of
yeah,
figure it out over time. You kind of just learn the cadence and stuff, man. But
that's a
that was
great
definitely
point.
one of the interesting parts. I thought for like the first month of working with this particular client that he did not like me just because his
Yeah,
emails were so short, like Patrick, comma, 2 sentences,
yeah.
sincerely. It didn't even put sincerely
Sincerely,
his name. It just said sincerely or like regards. Didn't even put my name
regards.
out
Yeah.
here.
No,
Yeah,
that's so
man.
true, man. That's so true. I think like that's what I learned early on. Like how I swear it's like just being a professional. It's a lot that goes into it. Like the dynamics of like working as a professional, like you mentioned, the email like culture, and like some things aren't necessarily like worded in a way to be mean, or like
Yeah.
it's just like it's very high pace. It's like get to the point. And then some people have different personalities. Like, I mean, when I write my emails, I try to always say hi,
Yeah. Like,
Patrick, or like thank you at the end instead of regards. Like I had a boss one time, she was from the UK, and she said she would always say kind regards, because if you say regards, it does give
just
that feeling
dismissive.
of just being sure. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, some people are like a little bit more conscious of it than others, but it's interesting.
Yeah, that was definitely a hard curve for me. Like, so if you're watching this and you're like one of those regards people that just emails, like your team might not tell you, but they
Yeah.
might think you're being a little shady, and I'm not talking Florida. So yeah. Um, yeah, man. So listen, I got one more question to ask you, man. You've been a great guest. This is incredible.
Good,
Um,
man.
so man, and this is gonna be really cool because you've worked with operators for like so long. And I always ask people, man, if you can tell them like, just one really, really crucial piece of information that will help them kind of, as I like to call it, transition, like, pun intended, transition their career to the next level. What is one piece of practical wisdom or advice you would, give aspiring operators who not just want to advance their career, but they may even want to be in a spot like you where they're working
Right.
actively in the law field?
Right, man. That's such a great question. And it goes back to kind of like we mentioned how many cities I've bounced around and how many companies I've worked for. And it's just like, I think if I can leave any piece of advice, it's just to take that leap of faith, be resilient, get rid of the imposter syndrome and really just roll the dice. It may not work out, but you can always pivot. You can always adapt, be versatile, have some type of idea of what you want to do, right? Like if you want to just remain a bus operator, that's excellent, and think about how you can be secure within that. If you want to maybe go back to school, if you want to like go to law school, if you want to, work for a different company, if you want to maybe go in-house, not in-house, I'm sorry, if you want to go work for like the public side instead of
Yeah,
private,
yeah, yeah.
like I guess that kind of is like in-house, work for the city, or if you want to like maybe move into management, like whatever it may be, have some idea. You don't have to have it all planned out, but just take that leap. Like I mentioned, when I moved to California, I actually I did the interview over the phone. I didn't even, the first time I went to San Francisco, I moved to California, have never even visited the Bay Area. Like I
Really?
took the flight. Yeah, exactly. I took the flight on like a Friday. Landed in San Francisco and had to start that following Monday, running a
Really?
transportation company in a city I've never even been to,
Never
and
even
didn't even have a commercial license when I rolled in the door, and I was only like 24 years old.
wow.
Two different unions, the whole nine. Very intimidating in it, but when I say it builds, just stick with it. persevere, be resilient, and you'll really like it can work out if you make it, and then
Yeah.
like whatever it may be, just take the lead. Even law school. I mean, I tell people I took the admissions test 5 times.
Wow.
I mean, it over the course of 2.5 years, and it never works out on the first try. But have some rough idea of what you want to do, and then really just do something every day to capture that. And it won't go wrong as long as you remain optimistic, as long as you remain, you know, um, like just confident in yourself. Like
Yeah.
just know that you won't stray too far, and it can get done. I tell you.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You mentioned that. I'm gonna come back to that because I want to kind of piggyback off of it as somebody who's been in the entrepreneurial space for a really long time, and as somebody who also too kind of failed a couple tests. I can say it now because I don't drive actively, but like there's a CDL permit test you probably know about.
Oh yeah, I failed
I
that first time.
I easily failed that thing like 6 times. Like
Easily. I think I failed it 3 times.
yeah, man. And then like the driving test, I remember it's up here.
I
Like you got to
failed
make
that
a
first.
left turn into like Reisterstown Plaza. And me, it was like 13
Uh,
years ago. So if you're on my bus now, you're safe. But I ran the
Easy.
red light, and failed the test, the actual physical driving test. So and
I failed the air brake test on my first go. I was in Sacramento.
wow,
And I mean, I literally, you get on there, check the PSI, the whole nine. I thought I was on it, and then she asked me she skipped the test, and it just threw my script off. And then
yeah,
5 minutes later, I was walking out of there. I'm like, damn. But I mean, everything you do in life, like you probably won't pass the first time, and that's fine. Like
yeah,
I think I failed at everything at least once, but if you stick with it, I mean, I'm on track to. I really have like my goals have been checked. I say that humbly because, I mean, I've went through a lot of motions to be where I'm at today. Going to law, and I'm at University of Pennsylvania, which is like a top 5 law school, and
nice,
I'm working at a firm that it's a great feeling.
yeah,
It all came kind of full circle. Now I'm just trying to loop in, although I've left the transit industry, I'm trying to again just take those skills, because transportation is like my baby. It's my first career. How
yeah,
can I that's why I'm thinking about even going into labor and employment law, or maybe they have bankruptcy law, some things that kind of resonate with what I've already done, because I'm just trying to make everything come full circle. You may not even be able to see the circle as you're
yeah.
starting out. But trust me, if you just kind of all make it, massage it all in to make the perfect sphere, you'll be fine.
Yeah, man. There's this quote I read it all the time, and it can't remember it word for word, but it sounds something like this. In life, the difference between the winners and the losers are the winners just didn't quit. That's
Yeah,
the only
yeah,
difference. The skills, again, we all have 24 hours a day, and we all have, our intangibles, and we have things we're good at, strengths, weaknesses. But the only difference is, and I'd even kind of expand on that and say, when you don't quit, you learn how to make it work. That's
yeah,
literally the only difference from your overachievers and your underachievers. The overachievers stay in the game long enough to figure out how to win. Whereas if you
yeah.
get out, you just kind of
Quit.
never learn, man. And so I
Yeah,
do want
man.
to go back to one more question. This isn't in the
Of
script, but it
course.
was very interesting. You said this. So I just kind of want to know, man, tell me about just that time. So you fill out an application for the West Coast, you do the interview
Hmm.
over the phone. And so, just tell me about that day. Do you just get a call and you say,
Yeah,
hey, we want to
man.
hire you? And you just pack a laptop bag and hop on United or Spirit? I don't
I
know which
know.
other
Yeah,
flight you are, man. Just tell
it
me about
was
that,
United. That's
because
funny.
that's a change. That's a massive
It is a massive
change, man.
change, and I
Tell me
was
about that
nervous.
day. Yeah.
And I'm gonna take you back even further. So I didn't mention. So my first job in high school, I worked as a cashier at McDonald's. Right, this was
Nice.
in Owings Mills. So I worked there for 2.5 years. Um, but as soon as I turned 18, the position opened up to be the entry level dispatcher at Veolia. So um, I say that to say I had a friend that worked at McDonald's with me as well, that was the operations manager for Veolia. And she took me under her wing. And then from there, I stuck through as a dispatcher. And then I eventually got the role it was like a dispatch supervisor. So I got to work on the radio. Um, over the MTA radio as communicating with the bus operators. And with that, sorry, I keep pulling my phone up. But with that, I was now on Patterson Avenue working for MTA Mobility for about 3-4 years. And then I was like, okay, again, with these acting aspirations, like how can I get to California? I didn't want to like leave transportation because it's been a crutch for me, like from the ages of 18 to maybe 24 to like it paid, it's getting paid. It was steady. There was always, it was booming. There wasn't any layoffs. Still isn't it? COVID kind of hit us hard, but yeah, it's still booming for the most part. Starting to rebound. So yeah, and then I went ahead and applied. So the same lady that gave me the job as a dispatch entry level position, she knew the operation. She knew the general manager in Vallejo, California. So she put in that recommendation for me to get the job. So that kind of helped, of course. Like, there's so many opportunities to network in transportation, just to kind of like go, like you just always give 100% because you don't know who's watching you. You don't know what positions may come up. So that same mentor reached out to the general manager in Vallejo, California. She, and she had a phone interview with me that was maybe 25, 30 minutes, but she knew based on my mentor's recommendation that I was going to be a successful operations manager. So she went ahead and hired me. I took the leap. Fortunately, the company, they provided for relocation expenses. So it was like a couple $1,000 so that I can ship my car. And then I had to I actually lived in an Airbnb for the first week until my apartment got cleared. But again, it's like
big money.
It's a lot. It's a lot of money. And I know it's definitely easier said than done. I was young. I didn't have any kids. I was single and the whole nine. But, to the extent that you can go ahead and take that leap, I know it's difficult depending on what stage of your life you may be, but definitely try to plan it out and make it happen. Because if it's in another city, if it's a position that will pay you more, and then it's maybe in a city that will provide a lot of fulfillment, then make that leap. Because once you do, you'll get there, and it will be hard. Like I looked at first couple of weeks, I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna be able to make this. Cause again, I didn't have the knowledge of the city. So I'm managing bus drivers and they asking me questions about their routes and all I know. I ain't even know. I'm on Google Maps. But again, if you put in the effort up front, like I was on the bus, I would drive around the city on my off time on the weekends, and it's hard. You got to just persevere and be optimistic and know that each day you'll learn something and become better. I feel like as long as you just be positive and want to be successful, you'll be successful. Because like a lot of people I've met a lot of people in transportation that really just were probably even burnt out or just didn't care.
Yeah.
And that never resonates with the bus drivers, So as long as you kind of make a presence, come out of your office, sit on the bus, be personable. If you're looking at a management career, you'll be fine. I've seen a lot of managers that just didn't have a presence. They kind of just sat back and gave orders, but at the end of the day, you just got to be a team player. That's how you get respect in transportation, because the bus drivers, they know the tricks of the trade. They've been in these positions for dozens of years. You can't come in throw the book at them. Yeah. So I'm look, only thing I know how to do is be a good person, be personable and be happy and be friendly. So I'm with that, cool. Y'all will eventually like me, and then y'all will eventually tell me how to make it through. So again, it's just really all about attitude, and I was hungry, I was happy, I was scared, but again, just do it, try, fake it till you make it. If you coming in, you scared, man, just roll your sleeves up and be like, look, I'm gonna get here early, I'm gonna stay late, I'm gonna smile in everybody's face, and I am going to learn what you have to know, and it will come, because people, that's what people forget. Like, you won't ever have all the answers. I don't care if I was living in the city for 25 years, like
Yeah.
it still was a new environment. So it's all about the attitude, man. And I think that's what kept me so successful.
That's good stuff, man. I'm looking at my little clock over here. I'm over time, but I just want
Oh,
to
no
say
problem.
one more thing,
Yeah, of
and
course.
then I
No, I'm
promise to
good.
let you go, man. You mentioned
No,
about
I'm good. Take your time.
the operations manager, and man, I know you can probably agree, and feel free to chime in that my current job, like my normal day to day, I remember my boss tells me all the time. One of the quotes that kind of kicked the door in for me, that was like, this is the guy we want to go with. I told him that my core belief is relationships will always go further than paperwork can.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships will get you in rooms you don't belong in. They'll get you on applications you ain't supposed to fill out. They will really pave the way for you. So I want to use a brief moment and again talk to drivers and say, like, make those relationships. It's good that you can drive. All that stuff's great, but the sweet sauce and a lot of the professional scope is really learning how to nurture those relationships and really make the right friends. I actually literally wrote a blog maybe a week ago, and I think that was like step number 4. Literally, step number 4 was to make the right friends. And so when you said that, it was like, yeah, man, I'm here because of a relationship. And sometimes, I was never really a big seniority type of guy, because it was just like, man, like I can be the best ever, but because I wasn't born in 1950, like I'm just going to be stuck here. But then when people showed me, like, those are just, the other opportunities, and you just got to kind of find your way in. And typically is you would like to think that it's normally you like barging in with guns and kicking the doors down. And it's not really like that. It's really somebody that's already on the inside that's going to extend you that email that says, hey, I know this kid who can do this, and give him a shot. So yeah, man, I just had to kind of put that in there, man. So again, if you're a driver and you're trying to like get to that next level, get your education, all that other good stuff is fine. Do a good job driving the bus, because like Chris said, you never know who's watching, and just nurture those relationships. You don't really know who knows who, or you don't know where they're going, So yeah, man, that was my 2 cents. Again, this is your show today. Sorry, I was talking so much, but
no, man, I'm glad you put the button on. I mean, put the bow on that, because that's what I was just trying to drive home. Like, like just those connections, and I think I've seen you speak about that quite a bit on LinkedIn, like how much, like being like you, I think I saw like this is an old blog post, but you spoke about like how the managers kind of need to like connect with the bus operators. I can't remember verbatim, but like just like the whole, whether it's the client, the customers that come on your bus, or the managers, whoever's in your circle, to really just get to know them and open up. It can be difficult. Like I'm a bit more extroverted than most. So I know it's difficult, like to open up and talk to people and stuff. And, you don't have to be fake, but even if it's just a small conversation, like it can go as far as just saying good morning to someone consistently, and it over time, you'll be able to like maybe foster a deeper connection with them, and they'll be able to help you out. I think every job I had when I was in transportation was because of like a connection. Like I didn't like, I bounced around to all these places, but like it was always because, oh, hey, VP, can you get me a job in LA? Or hey, VP, my mentor, I want a job in California. Oh, we don't have anything in LA, but there's something in Vallejo, California. Okay, I'll take that. Like it's just all about, it doesn't have to be with a bunch of people either. Like I believe in quality over quantity. So if it's like, have one mentor, maybe one mentee, like I have a manager, a dispatcher, a receptionist, and just like foster those relationships over time, and you'll be able to get something out of it.
Absolutely, man. You mentioned that you had kind of read one of my blogs where I was alluding to, how managers and operators kind of need to collaborate a lot more. And I want to use that to kind of segue into another point you mentioned about just like the not quitting. So I think you and I probably met because of a blog I was writing or something like that. And this conversation, this podcast is a result of that happening. And true story, I actually just got like my first little advertisement blip with that because of a blog. But I'm saying all that to say, like, I had been writing blogs for 7 years for free,
Yeah.
like no charge, no nothing. But again, one blog for free 7 years ago leads to this conversation, which got me advertising. And it's just like, man, so yeah,
Congrats,
don't give
man.
up, man. Don't give up. And
you
just
don't
keep
give
trying.
up. I see how much you persevere. I mean, that's what attracted me just to hitting, you know, like tuning into your pages and stuff, because it's somebody's watching, you know. And I mean,
Somebody's
like
watching.
even through me, like I know a whole bunch of people. I can't wait to be like, okay, yeah, you got to come on, you know, on the podcast with Patrick and
send them, man. Send them.
Like, I mean, you know, I know a couple people, so it's really cool, you know, that you are doing this, because I'm sure people are, you know, watching it and need it. So
yeah. So, hey man, we're gonna go ahead and let you up out of here, man. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Somebody's always watching. So listen, if you got cameras, this brother's an actor. Come holla at him. I'm sure he probably gets some downtime, man.
I got you.
We live in the TikTok world where all you need is this, and you can film a whole movie. So please hit my brother CJ up, man. I'm sure he'd be more than willing to kind of be your Law and Order kind of lawyer on television, man. So
I know, man. That's the truth. You know, feel free to find me on like LinkedIn.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, you know, we didn't talk about it, so I didn't want to just start saying, hey, go find him on LinkedIn by his government. I didn't know, but
no, put my LinkedIn
I'll get the team to throw it on there. Yeah, I get it.
And then cool. Yeah. That's probably the best way to contact me anyway.
Gotcha, man. I appreciate your time today, bro. I'm hoping the audience does. I know they will. So much value. You brought so much wisdom, brother. We appreciate you.
Good, man. I appreciate it.
And good luck in your journeys. And we're going to have you back definitely again.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I look forward to coming back, man. And I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you.
All right, bye.